What if your picture-perfect holiday turned into a public disaster, streamed across millions of screens? That's not a hypothetical. Because this December, Meghan Markle, Duchess, brand builder, and one-time Hollywood hopeful, unwrapped what was supposed to be her crowning festive moment. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. A Netflix Christmas special titled With Love, Meghan, Holiday Celebration. It was meant to be warm. It was meant to be healing. It was meant to be Meghan's public redemption arc wrapped in ribbons, wax seals, and impeccable dishware. Instead, it turned into a cold, glittery nightmare. The ratings? A dismal 1.3 out of 10. The reviews? Brutal. The backlash? Instant and unforgiving. And behind the scenes? Sources say Meghan Markle completely broke down. But here's the question that no one in the mainstream dares to ask. How did a woman who once captivated the world with her authenticity become the poster child for holiday artifice? And more importantly, why did her picture-perfect Christmas turn into a symbol of everything the public now rejects? Because this wasn't just a ratings flop. This was a cultural reckoning. And once you peel back the festive wrapping, what's exposed underneath is raw, icy, and maybe even tragic. Let's start with the moment the world realized something was wrong. The trailer alone should have been a warning. Meghan, in an elegantly lit living room. Garlands perfectly hung. A pristine Christmas tree beside her. Wrapped gifts stacked with geometric symmetry. She smiled gently at the camera. Delicate, poised, aesthetic to the point of sterility. But something was missing. The warmth. The laughter. The chaos of real holiday moments. There were no toddlers tugging at tinsel. No unexpected spills or candid laughter. Just one woman, alone in a flawless living room, crafting what felt more like a commercial than a celebration. Commentators noticed it immediately, and one of them, Alison Pearson, didn't hold back. She called Meghan a step-forward hostess, sneering that the show was joyless and fake. In a scathing opinion piece, Pearson went for the jugular. Joyless and fake. What a strange person Meghan is. The uptight, step-forward hostess is the last person I'd want to spend Christmas with. It stung. Not just because of the tone, but because it rang true for many. And it triggered a wider question. Has Meghan lost her emotional connection with the very audience she once won over? Because once upon a time, Meghan Markle was the symbol of breaking free. Breaking from royal protocols. From oppressive traditions. From emotional suppression. She was relatable. She cried in interviews. She spoke openly about pain. She reached people. But this holiday special? It showcased none of that. It was meticulous. It was choreographed. It was perfectly staged. And that, ironically, was the very thing that broke the illusion. The reviews didn't drip in slowly. They poured in. And they weren't merry. Critics called the show cold, curated, lacking any human spontaneity. One entertainment analyst described it as a glorified Pottery Barn catalog brought to life. And viewers? They echoed the same sentiment across platforms like TikTok and Twitter. This isn't Christmas, it's content. I've seen warmer vibes in an Amazon warehouse. Did anyone else feel like they were watching an AI-generated holiday? Ouch. And still, none of that compared to the biggest mystery of all. Where were her children? Archie is 6. Lilibet is 4. And yet, not a single appearance. Not a peek. Not even a blurry background cameo. This is a holiday special that includes everything, from wax-sealed gifts to handmade garlands. But not her kids. Why? Columnist Alison Pearson noted this too. With razor-sharp precision, the cousins, George, Charlotte, and Louis, have not met Archie and Lilibet. That's another strange Christmas absence that goes unacknowledged in this strenuously upbeat production. The silence was deafening. It was as if the show wanted to present Christmas, but not experience it. No family dynamic. No messy moments. Just surfaces. Surfaces that looked polished. But beneath them, something was unraveling. And fast. Here's what one Netflix insider allegedly shared. Off the record. The Duchess is presenting a perfect image, and it comes across as controlled and artificial rather than warm or inviting. That wasn't just an opinion. That was a warning. Because in the world of television, especially holiday content, perfection doesn't sell. Emotion does. Audiences want a connection. They want someone to laugh with, cry with, relate to. But Meghan? She fussed over wrapping techniques. demonstrated how to arrange fruit on platters, whispered softly about table etiquette. A media analyst summed it up like this: viewers respond to warmth and authenticity. When a host is meticulously curated, it creates distance rather than connection. And that's exactly what happened here. Distance. By the time Netflix's viewership charts were tallied, the result was historic. 1.3 out of 10. Not just low, embarrassingly low. For a royal-adjacent figure. For a streaming giant. For a holiday release. One PR expert put it bluntly: this is one of the worst-performing branded specials we've seen. Period. Especially given the marketing push behind it. And suddenly, questions erupted across the industry. Did Netflix make a mistake? Did Meghan overestimate her audience? Was this the first true sign that her brand had cracked? Or, most damningly, did she believe her own PR a little too much? Because everything about this special screamed control, precision, impeccable taste, but not joy, not fun, not heart. And therein lies the contradiction that's now threatening to undo everything Meghan's built. She's trying to sell relatability without showing anything real. She's selling warmth without vulnerability. She's selling joy without laughter. And when the disconnect is that wide, viewers don't just tune out. They revolt. Sources close to Meghan are now whispering about her emotional state post-release. They say she's devastated, humiliated, frustrated, that she didn't expect the backlash to be this swift, this personal, this unrelenting. One insider shared, she truly thought this would be a soft reintroduction, a warm, cozy version of herself. But when the reviews came in, it hit her hard. Very hard. So what happens when the public you're trying to charm rejects you? When you pour yourself into a project, only to have it torn apart? When the thing you thought would show your heart is seen as evidence that you've lost it? Those are the questions Meghan is reportedly grappling with now. And they're not small. Because if this holiday special was supposed to rebuild her reputation, it may have just done the opposite. And Meghan's brand might be facing a long, cold winter. But here's what you haven't heard yet. There's a reason this Christmas special was so tightly curated. There's a reason her children were nowhere to be seen. There's a reason this failure stings more than anything she's faced before. And it all begins with one very quiet, very strategic deal between Meghan and Netflix. A deal that now hangs by a thread. Because behind the smiles, the wax seals, and the candlelight, something was already broken. What happens when the golden ticket starts to rot? Because that's exactly what Meghan Markle's Netflix deal has started to look like. Once a headline-grabbing alliance, now a slowly decaying liability. And it didn't start with the Christmas special's failure. No. That was just the public faceplant. The real story begins far earlier, with backroom meetings, strategic posturing, and a duchess desperate to prove she could turn content into currency. So how did Meghan Markle go from Netflix's royal darling to a cautionary tale in Hollywood overreach? Let's rewind. Back to the moment the deal was first inked. Back to when hope was high, and the stakes were even higher. It was September 2020. The world was still grappling with COVID-19. The Sussexes had officially stepped down from royal duties just months earlier, and Meghan and Harry were freshly planted in Montecito, California, an ocean away from Buckingham Palace and scandal-soaked tabloids. But they weren't just settling in. They were preparing to build an empire. And at the heart of that vision, a lucrative multi-year deal with Netflix, reportedly worth between $100 million and $150 million. At the time, it sent shockwaves across both the entertainment industry and the royal establishment. No royal had ever attempted something like this, crossing over from ceremonial duties and staged appearances into the content creation battlefield of Hollywood. This wasn't about charity events or press conferences. This was about producing, storytelling, series, documentaries, animated features, exclusive specials, the kind of deal that didn't just promise fame, it promised control. And for Meghan Markle, that control was everything. Because after years of being painted as the villain in royal headlines, this was her moment to seize the narrative, to shape how the world saw her, to present her own version of the truth, polished and poised, just as she wanted it. But here's where it all starts to crack. Because power in Hollywood, it's not given, it's tested. And the moment you fail to deliver, even once, the industry doesn't just look away. It turns. So what were Meghan and Harry supposed to deliver? According to sources close to the Netflix team, the Sussexes promised a slate of uplifting, socially conscious, and globally resonant content. Documentaries that would inspire change. Stories that highlight humanity. A portfolio that, on paper, sounded noble. But behind the scenes, Netflix wanted numbers. They wanted traction. They wanted binge-worthy. And Meghan? She wanted elegance. That gap between raw entertainment and curated perfection would become a problem. A big one. Because while Harry's docuseries Heart of Invictus had a modest cultural footprint, and their 6-part Harry and Meghan documentary drew massive initial numbers thanks to its royal drama, Meghan still hadn't launched a solo hit. Not one. Netflix executives were reportedly growing anxious. One anonymous exec put it plainly. "We don't do charity deals. This isn't about making someone feel seen. It's about streaming hours, audience engagement, and returns." So when the idea of a holiday special was floated by Meghan's team, Netflix saw a gamble. A low-risk, medium-reward shot at redemption. And possibly a setup for something bigger. The Christmas special was originally pitched as a cozy, inclusive celebration of traditions, warmth, and modern family values. Think candlelight, community, handcrafted memories. Think Oprah meets the holiday. Think relatable luxury. It sounded like a win. After all, Meghan had already branded herself as a lifestyle tastemaker back in her TIG days. Recipes, reflections, hostess tips, quotes about mindfulness over brunch. The theory was simple. If Meghan could translate that aspirational energy to screen, the audience would flock. Netflix greenlit the project. But insiders say there were strings attached. While Meghan would retain creative control, Netflix made it clear this had to land. There were whispers of a soft internal target. 10 million views within the first 2 weeks. Not impossible. Not easy either. Especially when you consider what Meghan had just walked away from. Spotify. Let's talk about that. Because just months before this holiday special was finalized, Meghan's much-hyped podcast Archetypes was dropped by Spotify. The contract, originally valued at $20 million, was terminated early. And the reason? Poor performance. Limited output. Weak audience engagement. Bill Simmons, a top Spotify executive, didn't hold back. He referred to Harry and Meghan as FNG grifters. A damning comment. One that exploded across headlines. It was a reputational blow. And for Meghan? A warning shot. The Netflix Christmas special had to work. Not just for the public, but for the industry. This was her second chance to prove she could create compelling content. But instead of leaning into emotion, spontaneity, or even humor, she doubled down on curation. And that decision would haunt her. Let's pause and ask something uncomfortable. Why did Meghan think this would work? Why did she believe that a show so rigidly styled, so polished, so carefully devoid of surprise, would somehow connect? The answer might lie in her past. Because for Meghan, presentation has always been protection. From her early days in Hollywood auditions, to walking behind the Queen at formal royal events, to navigating scandal after scandal in the tabloids. Every moment has taught her, control the narrative, or the narrative controls you. And so, in her mind, the Christmas special wasn't just a production. It was a message, a statement. I am composed. I am capable. I am safe. But here's the irony. What made her feel safe made the audience feel nothing. Netflix execs began to panic 3 days after launch. The initial click-through rate was solid. But completion rates? Horrific. Viewers were tuning in. And then tuning out halfway through the first 20 minutes. One insider whispered, "We were seeing a massive drop-off in episode retention. People just didn't care. It wasn't hate watching. It was boredom. And worse, the social media reaction was turning savage. Clips were getting reposted not with admiration, but mockery. One TikTok stitched a clip of Meghan carefully folding linen napkins, captioning it, 'Blink twice if you're trapped in a Williams-Sonoma.' Another went viral with over 2 million views. This is what happens when you remove toddlers and dogs from a Christmas special. You're left with beige. It was spiraling. And Meghan's team? Caught off guard. According to one source close to the Sussex camp, Meghan believed she had finally nailed it. She thought this was it. A new start. Something gentle, beautiful, hers. But it collapsed instantly. The press began circling. Piers Morgan, predictably, pounced. Royal commentators resurfaced old criticisms. And perhaps most devastatingly, Netflix didn't defend her. No corporate statements. No highlight reels. No push. Just silence. One former streaming consultant explained, "When Netflix believes in a project, they protect it. They feature it. They fight for it. When they go quiet, it means the internal decision's already been made. They're moving on." And suddenly, that lucrative deal didn't seem so secure anymore. Meghan's holiday gamble was supposed to be safe. Comfort food content. Something even her critics could stomach. But instead, it backfired. It exposed the growing disconnect between Meghan's brand and the real world. It revealed that style, without soul, means nothing. And worst of all, it forced Netflix to ask a question they never thought they'd be asking. Is Meghan Markle worth the investment anymore? But this isn't the end of the deal, because Chapter 2 reveals what came next. When the audience recoiled, the critics attacked, and Meghan's carefully constructed public persona was dragged into question. And that's when the term step-forward hostess hit headlines, and the image of the Duchess began to truly collapse. What's more unsettling than a villain? A hostess who smiles without blinking. Because while Meghan Markle's holiday special was supposed to be heartwarming, an ode to modern motherhood, cozy traditions, and festive connection, what it actually delivered was something else entirely. Something uncanny, sterile, and frankly strange. From the moment the show opened, with Meghan gently smoothing out the corners of a white linen napkin while a softly filtered version of Silver Bells played in the background, the tone felt wrong. Not tense, not dramatic, just lifeless, and viewers felt it instantly. So how did the Duchess of Sussex go from being celebrated for her warmth to being called a step-forward hostess by major commentators? And more importantly, is this carefully constructed version of Meghan just a brand? Or has she lost touch with who she really is? Let's dissect that now infamous critique. The phrase step-forward hostess didn't come from a TikTok user. It came from Alison Pearson, a veteran columnist for the UK's The Telegraph. A woman not known for pulling punches. In a blistering takedown, Pearson wrote, "Joyless and fake. What a strange person Meghan is. The uptight, step-forward hostess is the last person I'd want to spend Christmas with." Think about that for a moment. Pearson didn't just critique the content. She went for Meghan's entire persona. She painted a portrait of a woman who isn't just misguided, but deeply alienating. Not because she's offensive, but because she's robotic, polished to the point of sterility. A woman so determined to curate every detail, she forgot to be human. Here's what makes this even more tragic. This wasn't always Meghan's brand. Let's rewind to the early days, back when Meghan was still best known for her role in Suits. A sharp, charismatic actress who ran a lifestyle blog, The Tig, and frequently posted avocado toast and barefoot garden photos on Instagram. She felt real. She shared quotes from Maya Angelou and reflections on self-worth. She once did a post about the joy of cheap wine with girlfriends. She even wrote openly about growing up biracial and feeling out of place in certain rooms. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Fast forward to 2023, that Meghan is nowhere to be found. Instead, the holiday special introduced the world to a new version, one who whispers as she places bows, who gazes at centerpieces with eerie stillness, who carefully layers candied orange slices in a copper pot, and explains the symbolism behind rosemary sprigs on table settings without cracking a smile. Not a single unfiltered moment. Not one unscripted laugh. Not even a spilled glass of wine or a moment of genuine chaos, which, let's be honest, defines real holidays for most families. And that absence? It created a vacuum, a void of connection, a shiny, well-lit Christmas without any soul. Ask yourself this. What do you remember most from the holiday specials you love? The perfect decorations? Or the disasters? The burnt turkey? The kids fighting in the background? The awkward uncle who brings the wrong dish? The dog eating half the charcuterie board? Those moments? That's where memory lives. It's where warmth is built. It's where relatability happens. But Meghan's special? It felt like walking through a museum gift shop curated by Anthropology. Pretty, expensive, silent, and completely disconnected from any lived human experience. Even the music choices were clinical. Rather than nostalgic carols or the kind of classic tunes that make you suddenly tear up for no reason, viewers were treated to instrumental background music that sounded like it belonged in a high-end hotel lobby. One critic called it Christmas as imagined by an algorithm trying not to offend anyone. Harsh. Maybe, but not inaccurate. And let's talk about the way Meghan spoke on camera. Because even that, surprisingly, added to the problem. Her tone was soothing, yes, but also distant. She spoke to the camera the way one might narrate a spa meditation app. These ribbons represent thoughtfulness. It's about taking a moment to slow down, to show someone you care. Fine, but where was the laughter? Where was the play? Where was the surprise? It felt like she was hosting an aesthetic, not a celebration. And the people at home noticed. Social media lit up with reactions, not all of them kind. One ex-user, formerly Twitter, wrote, Meghan looks like she's hosting a hostage situation in a Williams-Sonoma catalog. Another, there's more life in my broken string lights than in this entire special. TikTok creators began parodying her soft-spoken narration style, cutting between scenes of pristine tree decorating and satirical voiceovers saying things like, this is a ribbon. I found it in a basket made of sustainably sourced thoughts. And yes, it was funny. But beneath the laughter was something deeper. Discomfort. Not anger. Not outrage. Just confusion. Confusion about how someone so intent on being seen could still feel so emotionally invisible. Let's dive deeper. Why didn't this work? Why did a woman known for her vulnerability, the same one who once cried on national television during her royal tour of Africa, admitting, not many people have asked if I'm okay, suddenly come off as cold and inaccessible? Here's one theory. Meghan has confused vulnerability with vulnerability-themed aesthetics. It's subtle, but powerful, because instead of actually being open, messy, joyful, flawed, she's curating the appearance of being open. She'll show a carefully styled moment of her placing a childhood ornament on the tree. She'll narrate a story about love and gratitude in a candlelit voice. But she won't joke. She won't stumble. She won't laugh at herself. And in that omission, the human connection vanishes. Alison Pearson wasn't the only one who noticed. Other critics, even in the US, began to echo the sentiment. A review in Variety noted, the set is gorgeous. Meghan is composed. But it feels like watching someone host a dinner party through bulletproof glass. Even Oprah, yes, Oprah, was reportedly surprised by the tone. An anonymous source close to the talk show queen allegedly shared. Oprah expected more emotion, more life. She was a bit puzzled. When Oprah Winfrey is puzzled by your holiday spirit, something's off. And here's where the conversation takes a darker turn. Because beyond the aesthetics, beyond the presentation, beyond the wax seals and whisper tones, there was a chilling absence. Not of children, not of family, but of fun. Why didn't Meghan have fun? Why didn't she let herself be free? Why didn't she loosen up, embrace the chaos, and let the world see the version of her that makes friends laugh over wine, or dances in the kitchen, or burns the first batch of gingerbread? Because by hiding that part of herself, she revealed everything else. It's the classic Hollywood trap. Cure it too tightly, and the humanity leaks out. It's the influencer paradox. Post a photo of a perfectly styled Christmas tree, and it gets likes. Post a photo of your kid dumping the tree over while wearing pajamas covered in cereal milk. That gets shares. That gets love. And that's the brutal irony. In her quest to be respected, admired, adored, Meghan stripped away the very elements that would have made her lovable. And now, with critics branding her as a step-forward hostess and the public clicking away in droves, the question becomes painfully clear. Does Meghan Markle even know how to show the real her anymore? Because if this special was the result of full creative control, if this was the version she wanted the world to see, what does that say about what she's hiding? What does that say about what she's afraid to show? What does that say about the pressure she feels to always perform? But it's not just a performance problem. It's a visibility problem. And in Chapter 3, we're going to talk about the most disturbing omission of all, Archie and Lilibet. Because when a mother curates her perfect Christmas and leaves her children out completely, people notice. And what that absence says about Meghan's mindset and her relationship with the royal family might be the most heartbreaking truth of all. What kind of mother creates a Christmas special without her children in it? It's a question that echoed across living rooms, message boards, royal forums, and TikTok comment sections the moment With Love, Meghan holiday celebration debuted on Netflix. You could feel it. A strange silence. There she was, Meghan Markle, gracefully trimming the tree, hosting an intimate craft session, narrating the meaning of togetherness. But nowhere to be seen were Archie and Lilibet. No giggles in the background. No messy cookie frosting sessions. No kids peeking around corners with oversized antlers. Not even a fuzzy silhouette. And for a holiday special built on themes of family, warmth, and connection, that absence didn't just feel strange. It felt deliberate. So why were Meghan's own children, arguably the most humanizing parts of her life, completely cut from her most personal project yet? And what does that tell us, not just about the show, but about the Duchess herself? Let's pull back the glitter curtain, because the answer is more complicated and heartbreaking than anyone imagined. Let's start with the obvious. This wasn't a coincidence. Netflix doesn't accidentally leave things out, especially not something as significant as Meghan's children. This was a choice, a creative, calculated decision made either by Meghan, her team, or a joint strategy with Netflix producers. And if you followed the Sussex's media moves since stepping back from royal duties, the pattern becomes crystal clear. Archie and Lilibet are seen only when it suits the brand. You'll catch glimpses, curated family portraits, black and white montages, brief cameos in docuseries moments. But never full exposure. Never chaotic childhood energy. It's always stylized, sanitized, aesthetic, and that alone speaks volumes. But this time, there wasn't even that. No mention, no image, no voice, nothing. A complete holiday erasure. And it didn't go unnoticed. Commentators were baffled. Some questioned if this was a privacy move. Others speculated on more troubling implications. Columnist Alison Pearson called it out plainly in her takedown piece. The cousins, George, Charlotte, and Louis, have not met Archie and Lilibet. That's another strange Christmas absence that goes unacknowledged in this strenuously upbeat production. Pause on that. Not only were Archie and Lilibet absent from Meghan's Netflix special, they've reportedly never even met their cousins. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis, the future of the monarchy, and yet the children of Harry and Meghan remain strangers to them. Can you imagine that? Two branches of the same royal bloodline, severed by distance, silence, and scandal. It's not just sad, it's surreal. One source close to the royal household described the rift as frozen in place. It's like they've emotionally exiled the children too, the source said. And nobody knows how to bridge the gap anymore. And that tension spilled right into Meghan's special. Because how do you present an image of joy and connection when the most innocent victims of your family feud are nowhere in sight? You don't. You avoid it. You edit around it. You pretend it doesn't exist. Which is exactly what Meghan seemed to do. Let's talk optics. Because if you're Meghan Markle and your global brand is built on motherhood, feminism, empathy, and family, what does it say when you exclude your own children from your most authentic project to date? To the average viewer, it didn't make sense. This was supposed to be her big, soft, family-friendly moment. The chance to show us real Meghan, the hostess, the mom, the woman behind the Duchess. But instead of sweet chaos, we got showroom calm. No peanut butter fingerprints. No giggles behind couches. No bedtime book moments. Just Meghan alone. Always alone. And for a show supposedly about togetherness, that felt like a punch. And let's be honest, children humanize people. We know this. We see it in reality shows, documentaries, interviews. The moment a child appears, real, unscripted, messy, it brings warmth. It softens celebrity edges. It invites empathy. Even a simple scene of Archie decorating cookies or Lilibet squealing over wrapping paper would have shifted the entire emotional tone of the special. Instead, their absence became its own character. Looming, mysterious, haunting, and people started asking, was this a creative misfire? Or something more serious? Some analysts pointed to Meghan's ongoing legal and reputational concerns. Keeping the children out of the frame is strategic, one crisis PR expert explained. It limits public scrutiny, keeps legal leverage intact, and prevents overexposure in volatile media environments. That's one explanation. But another source close to Netflix claimed the real reason was far more personal. Meghan was afraid the show would be picked apart, the insider said. She didn't want Archie or Lilibet to become targets. She wanted total control. Total control. There's that word again. It's come up in every insider whisper, every critic's review, every headline. Control over the lighting. Control over the ribbons. Control over the food. Control over the narrative. But when control becomes fear, and fear becomes isolation, you end up with an eerily beautiful Christmas with no children's laughter to soften it. Even Meghan's own fans felt the void. In Reddit threads dedicated to Sussex supporters, the tone was unusually somber. One fan posted, "I love Meghan, but this just didn't feel like her. No Archie, no Lily. Why does it feel like she's alone in this huge house, playing Christmas?" Another wrote, "I get wanting privacy, but this was supposed to be a family special. I kept waiting for a tiny voice, a giggle, anything. And therein lies the contradiction that crushed the special's emotional core. Meghan wanted to appear relatable, but she hid the very things that would have made her real. Let's contrast this with royal Christmas specials of the past. Think back to Princess Diana. She'd let the cameras catch William tugging at her dress during a Christmas visit. She smiled unbothered. She laughed when her heels sank in the grass. She wasn't perfect. She was present. The Queen's own Christmas messages, though formal, often referenced family memories, missteps, even moments of grief and reconciliation. But Meghan? She gave us pristine wrapping paper and monogram napkin rings. No stories, no family, no mess. It was beauty without emotion, elegance without essence. And worst of all, it left audiences feeling nothing. But let's ask the hardest question of all. Was the absence of Archie and Lilibet just about privacy, or a symptom of deeper emotional distance? Because if Meghan wanted to include them, Netflix wouldn't have stopped her. She has the power. She has the deal. She had the platform. So maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to risk seeing them in that space. Didn't want to confront how disconnected their world has become. Didn't want to acknowledge the chasm between the children of Montecito and the children of Kensington. Because if Archie had asked on camera, "Why don't we ever see Uncle William's kids?" how would she answer? This is where it gets uncomfortable. Because behind the scenes, sources claim Meghan is painfully aware of how the absence looks. One insider said, "She broke down after the first round of reviews. The word soulless really got to her. But it was the questions about the kids that hit hardest. She thought she'd protected them, but the silence backfired. And now, she's stuck in a lose-lose loop. Include the children, and risk backlash about exploiting them. Exclude them, and look emotionally disconnected. But here's the brutal truth. You can't sell family without showing family. And Meghan's special, meant to be her most intimate, vulnerable project yet, ended up exposing the biggest vulnerability of all. She doesn't know how to share without protecting. And she doesn't know how to protect without hiding. So where does that leave us? A mother, a duchess, a woman, alone on a holiday set, surrounded by carefully arranged candles, wax-sealed packages, and the ghost of the laughter that should have been. And the children? Still unseen, still unmentioned, still separated from a royal Christmas they've never known. But that's not the only absence haunting this holiday. Because what came next wasn't about Meghan's children, or her curated home, or her failed connection. It was about the world's response. Because in Chapter 4, we dive into the avalanche of brutal reviews, media takedowns, and the chilling realization that Meghan's most polished project became her most mocked. What does it feel like to watch your perfect vision be torn to shreds within hours? That's the brutal reality Meghan Markle faced the moment with Love, Meghan. Holiday celebration hit the Netflix homepage. She had spent months preparing this moment. Every pine needle positioned, every velvet bow adjusted, every segment rehearsed, every guest curated. But within 2 hours of its release, the headlines started to roll in. And they weren't glowing. They weren't even neutral. They were vicious. And Meghan, expecting soft applause and cozy comfort, was suddenly the centerpiece of one of the most brutal media pylons of her career. What happened? How did a holiday special, a genre practically designed to be immune to criticism, become the epicenter of cultural backlash? Let's break it down. Because the reviews weren't just bad. They were historic. It started with a whisper, an early blog review on a niche entertainment site simply titled, "With Love, Meghan, a holiday special missing everything but love." It was snarky, but nothing out of the ordinary. Then came the bigger hits. Variety published its review with the subhead, "A curated chill, Meghan Markle's holiday special offers perfect aesthetics, and zero warmth. They didn't hold back. They called the special visually polished but emotionally vacant. They criticized the lack of spontaneity. They said Meghan seemed unreachable behind a wall of soft lighting and scripted sincerity. But that was just the beginning. Within 24 hours, the takedowns went international. The Daily Mail, unsurprisingly, went for blood. Their headline screamed, "Joyless, fake, and flatter than a day-old Christmas cookie." And the article beneath? Pure fire. They accused Meghan of holiday posturing, of weaponizing aesthetic, and, most cutting of all, of performing motherhood without ever showing a mother. The Telegraph's Alison Pearson, whose brutal phrase "step forward hostess" had already gone viral, followed up with a second column titled, "Why Meghan Markle's Christmas Special is the Coldest Thing on TV This Year." She doubled down. It's not just that it was boring. It was unsettling, like being invited into a snow globe built by an algorithm that's never celebrated Christmas. Pearson ended her piece with a line that cut through like frost. She's not trying to connect. She's trying to impress. And in doing so, she's never felt further from the people she so desperately wants to reach. And it didn't stop at traditional media. Social media exploded. On X, formerly Twitter, the hashtag #StepForwardChristmas trended for nearly 2 days. TikTok creators began dissecting the show scene by scene, pointing out strange editing choices, awkward silences, and moments where Meghan appeared to fake laugh at jokes that weren't funny. One video, viewed over 3 million times, was captioned, "This isn't a Christmas special. This is a corporate hostage video with Holly." Even Meghan's normally loyal fan base seemed unsure how to defend it. In fan forums, longtime supporters of the Sussexes posted things like, "I wanted to love this. I really did. But why does it feel like it was made by AI? Is Meghan okay? This doesn't feel like her. Where's the heart?" And then came the numbers. Rotten Tomatoes audience score, 19%. IMDb, 1.3 out of 10. One of the lowest-rated holiday specials on Netflix. In history, to put that into perspective, the infamous Kardashian Christmas special from 2015, which was widely mocked, still scored a 4.7. Even Hallmark's lowest-performing festive films rarely dip below a 5. This was a crater. Netflix doesn't often publicly acknowledge viewership failures, but insiders leaked that internal engagement was alarmingly low, particularly for a high-budget, highly promoted branded special. One analyst from a rival streaming service told The Wrap, "We were stunned. Meghan Markle is one of the most recognizable women in the world. For her special to collapse this hard, that's not just bad content. That's a brand crisis. So why the extreme reaction? Why didn't the public simply ignore the special or mildly dislike it, instead of metaphorically burning it to the ground?" The answer, it seems, lies in expectation versus reality. Because Meghan didn't just release a show. She promised an experience, a cozy escape, a return to softness, an alternative to the chaos of the world. And what she delivered felt hollow. It's the emotional equivalent of unwrapping a beautifully packaged gift box, only to find it's empty inside. No message. No surprise. Just silence. Even the guests on the special received criticism. One lifestyle blogger who appeared for a craft segment was called so tightly edited it felt like she was on anti-anxiety medication. A cookbook author who was supposed to help Meghan prepare a holiday dessert appeared in just 2 minutes of footage and was barely allowed to speak. It was Meghan's show, and only hers. A controlled solo act. Critics pointed this out, too. The Hollywood Reporter wrote, "This was a one-woman performance. Not a party, not a gathering, not even a celebration. It was branding disguised as community. And it gets worse. Some viewers reported feeling anxious while watching. An editor for a Canadian entertainment blog described the sensation perfectly. It was like watching someone try so hard to be perfect that I couldn't relax. I kept waiting for a smile to crack, for a laugh to break through. But it never came." She added, "It made me sad, actually. Like watching a very lonely person try to throw a party for ghosts." That's not a review. That's a diagnosis. And it speaks to the deeper issue that no one at Netflix, or perhaps even Meghan's own team, was willing to confront. The audience isn't asking for perfection. They're asking for presence, emotion, connection, honesty. And when that's not offered, they reject the whole package. Privately, Insiders say Meghan was blindsided. A source close to Archewell said, "She truly believed the show was going to be embraced, that it would reframe how people saw her, that it would feel safe, warm, and uplifting. Instead, it became a meme, a symbol of overcuration, a cautionary tale, and perhaps worst of all, a personal embarrassment." Another insider added, "She took this one very hard. It wasn't a team project. This was hers. Her vision, her pacing, her narration. The backlash felt personal." Netflix has reportedly gone quiet since the drop. No further promotion, no reposted clips, no holiday push, no follow-up specials announced. A quiet distancing. And in Hollywood, silence speaks louder than statements. It's the unspoken industry rule. When a platform believes in your project, they promote it. When they don't, they make sure the next big thing is front and center. And you? You quietly disappear. So what happens when the Duchess of Sussex, once one of the world's most talked about women, gets quietly shelved? What happens when the comeback moment becomes a case study in how not to do public image rehab? What happens when the only thing colder than your Christmas special is the industry that funded it? But this story isn't just about failure. It's about why it failed. Because Meghan didn't wake up one day and decide to make an empty special. She was trying to fix something, reclaim something. She was trying, desperately, to show the world a softer version of herself. But as we'll see in Chapter 5, that desire for perfection has been eating away at her for years. From Hollywood to the palace to Montecito. And in her obsession to control every frame, she may have finally lost control of the one thing she can't buy back: public trust. At what point does aspiration become alienation? That's the question now hanging like a strand of tinsel over Meghan Markle's entire public persona. Because the failure of her Netflix holiday special wasn't just about bad writing, or awkward editing, or muted music choices. No, it was about something deeper, something far more uncomfortable. A creeping sense that Meghan is no longer trying to connect, she's trying to curate. Every moment, every breath, every flicker of emotion, managed. And in the process, she's become the very thing she once claimed to oppose: a controlled royal performance masquerading as authenticity. So how did we get here? How did Meghan Markle, once the breakout, relatable people's princess of the American left, transform into a hyper-curated symbol of cold ambition? And how did the public shift from embracing her story to rejecting her presence? Let's unpack the illusion. Because behind the lighting setups and scripted smiles lies something raw, conflicted, and maybe even tragic. Let's go back to the beginning. Before the Netflix deals, before Oprah, before archetypes, before Sussex Royal. Let's go back to the TIG. For those who forgot or never knew, the TIG was Meghan Markle's now-defunct lifestyle blog. A mix of fashion finds, wellness mantras, foodie snapshots, and journal-style posts reflecting on everything from identity to insecurities. It was warm. It was soft. It was messy, in the best way. There were recipes for quinoa, reflections on being biracial in Hollywood, handwritten thank you notes posted in grainy filter tones. It felt real. And when Meghan joined the royal family, the TIG was quietly shut down. Archived. Buried. Why? Because authenticity isn't part of the Windsor brand. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, Meghan shifted. At first, it was subtle. A more neutral wardrobe, a more formal speaking cadence, a reluctance to speak too freely in interviews. But after the wedding, after Frogmore Cottage, after the tabloids began to twist her into the villain of every headline, the curation intensified. Then came the split, Megxit, the move to Montecito, the infamous line, "We didn't just survive, we're thriving." It sounded bold, freeing, but in truth, that line marked the beginning of a new illusion. Because instead of escaping control, Meghan just rebuilt it, this time under her terms. And what she built wasn't a home for vulnerability. It was a fortress of perfection. Let's look at the signs. The Oprah interview, carefully styled, controlled angles, scripted talking points. Archetypes podcast, high production value, meticulously edited. Guests who rarely challenged her. Lilibet's birthday photos, professionally shot, released late, and edited to maintain narrative control. Even Meghan's public appearances follow a pattern: soft pastels, diffused makeup, speech patterns that avoid spontaneity. But nowhere was this more evident than in the holiday special. Because this time, there was no royal protocol to blame. No palace press office. No Buckingham red tape. This time, Meghan was in full control, and the result was a glittering snow globe of style, frozen in place. So what's driving this? Is it ambition? Insecurity? Past trauma? Maybe all three. Because if you've studied Meghan's career trajectory, from struggling actress to duchess to media mogul, you'll notice a pattern. Rejection begets reinvention. Every time the world pushes back, Meghan tightens her grip. She shapes. She edits. She perfects. She changes scenery, changes tone, changes partners. Not because she's fake, but because she's afraid. Afraid of the chaos. Afraid of the pain. Afraid of the judgment. So she controls the narrative. Until it controls her. And the public? They can feel it. Even if they can't articulate it, they sense the disconnect. That gut feeling when someone's smiling, but it doesn't quite reach their eyes. That hollowness when words about joy are delivered without a single unscripted laugh. That contradiction when someone says authenticity matters while hiding their children from every meaningful project. It's not about hating Meghan. It's about not believing her anymore. And in today's media landscape, that's worse than being hated. It's being ignored. Here's where it gets complicated. Because the intention behind the curation isn't evil. It's human. Meghan is, at her core, a woman who has spent her entire adult life battling images she didn't create. From casting directors labeling her as too ethnic or not ethnic enough, to tabloids calling her difficult, to royal courtiers branding her as manipulative, to anonymous sources painting her as cold, demanding, transactional. She's been objectified, minimized, caricatured. So is it really surprising that she's built her image with architect-level precision? That she's terrified of giving the world a single crack to exploit? Of course not. But here's the rub. When you become your own product, you eventually forget how to be a person. That's what viewers saw in the Netflix special. Not a woman. A brand. Not a mother. A hostess. Not Meghan. A mannequin draped in aspiration. And no matter how beautiful the ribbons were, no one could feel the warmth. Because perfection, when pursued at all costs, becomes its own kind of loneliness. One former Hollywood publicist put it bluntly. Meghan's not struggling with public image because she's unlikable. She's struggling because she's inaccessible. And in today's world, that's deadly for a brand. Another entertainment strategist shared this insight. The public has shifted. We want mess. We want flaws. We want kitchen disasters. Meghan's giving us a Nancy Meyers set piece with the emotional temperature of a Whole Foods olive bar. Brutal? Yes, but not wrong. And here's where it gets even more tragic. Meghan probably thought she was finally getting it right. That this was the moment she'd reconnect. That after Oprah, after Spotify, after the Netflix docuseries drama, this was her pivot back into safe waters. But perfection is no longer what the public craves. We've moved on. And Meghan might be the last person who hasn't realized it. So where does she go from here? Does she double down? Release another curated special? Does she return to podcasting, this time even more polished? Or does she finally crack the surface? Does she throw out the script? Let us see her mess. Let us hear her stutter, her awkwardness, her discomfort. Let Archie barge in mid-shoot. Let Lilibet scream off camera. Let the candles burn too low and the cookies overbake. Because that would change everything. That would make people feel again. But is Meghan Markle capable of that? Can she let go of the illusion before the world walks away for good? That's the emotional cliff she's standing on now. And whether she admits it or not, the numbers don't lie. The holiday special didn't just fail to charm. It exposed the fatal flaw in her post-royal strategy. Because when everything becomes image, everything becomes empty. But the industry isn't just watching. It's reacting. And in Chapter 6, we dive deep into what's happening behind the scenes in Hollywood. Meghan's rebrand, the events she's crashing, the influencers she's mimicking, and the desperate push to become America's new Gwyneth, just as Netflix quietly starts backing away. When the castle closes its gates, do you head for the red carpet instead? That's the exact path Meghan Markle appears to be navigating right now. Only it's not a red carpet. Not yet. Because while her holiday special on Netflix may have flopped spectacularly in the eyes of critics and viewers, behind the scenes, Meghan has been executing a very different kind of strategy. A full-fledged Hollywood rebrand. Think power lunches in Brentwood. Think subtle Instagram teases. Think whisper campaigns linking her to Gwyneth-esque wellness launches. Think invitations to influencer dinners and quiet handshakes with fashion house PR directors. But here's the real question. Is it a smart pivot or a panic move dressed in linen and lavender? Let's walk through the evidence. Because this isn't a new Meghan we're seeing. It's a recycled version of a woman we've seen before. Only this time, she's fighting against time, scrutiny, and a reputation that's dangerously close to losing its shine. It all began, not coincidentally, right after the Spotify fallout. Let's set the stage. Meghan and Harry inked their lucrative deal with Spotify in 2020. She launched her podcast archetypes in 2022 with splashy graphics, A-list guests, and an earnest mission statement about exploring the labels that hold women back. The media buzzed. The debut episode, featuring Serena Williams, was a hit. But after 12 episodes, silence. And in 2023, Spotify pulled the plug. A reported $20 million deal terminated. Insiders cited low output. Critics cited lack of depth. And then came the bombshell from Spotify exec Bill Simmons, who publicly called Meghan and Harry ing grifters. The fallout was immediate. Memes exploded. Industry confidence plummeted. And Meghan? She vanished for a while. But when she returned, the vibe had changed. Gone was the polished Duchess in neutral tones. In her place, a woman suddenly spotted in trendier outfits, doing photo ops in oversized shades, hugging indie actors, and attending brand launches for clean beauty lines. Coincidence? Not even a little. Let's talk the Gwyneth playbook. Yes, Gwyneth Paltrow, the Oscar-winning actress turned lifestyle mogul, founder of Goop, and the queen of upscale pseudoscience. Gwyneth is everything Meghan seems to be studying right now. A media-savvy woman who transformed a rocky Hollywood reputation into a billion-dollar brand based on aspiration, wellness, and minimalism. And if you've been watching closely, Meghan's recent moves seem eerily familiar. Here's just a sample. A sudden pivot toward clean, minimalist branding. See her launch teaser for a possible lifestyle brand rumored to be called American Riviera Orchard. Networking with West Coast influencer circles. She was seen mingling with rising TikTok wellness gurus at a private Malibu event. Whispered talks with skincare developers and organic tea suppliers. Wearing Gwyneth-style outfits, flowing caftans, minimalist gold jewelry, clean ponytails, wide-leg cream trousers. It's not subtle, and industry insiders are talking. One Beverly Hills brand strategist confided, Meghan is absolutely modeling herself after Gwyneth. The timing is obvious. After the podcast imploded, she needed a direction that wasn't attached to Harry, wasn't about the royal family, and wasn't political. Lifestyle is the safest bet. Another Hollywood publicist put it even more directly. She's trying to goop herself out of the Netflix trap. But here's the problem. It might be too late. Because while Meghan is re-entering the wellness and aspirational space with full force, the industry has changed. The influencer economy is saturated. The public is skeptical, and trust in celebrity lifestyle brands is at an all-time low. Just ask Ellen, or Jessica Alba, or any of the dozens of C-list actresses who thought clean candles would save their careers. But Meghan's not just facing market fatigue. She's battling narrative fatigue. People are tired of not knowing who she is. And in the world of lifestyle branding, that's lethal. Let's break it down even further. Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop works because, love her or hate her, people know what she stands for. She's unapologetically weird. She says vagina-scented candles with a straight face. She believes in infrared saunas and bone broth breakfasts. You may roll your eyes, but at least it's clear. With Meghan, everything feels filtered, overproduced, overmanaged, underdelivered. One week she's a podcast host. The next she's a duchess on a Netflix show. The next she's launching jam jars and dropping cryptic floral branding on social media. It's giving whiplash. And brand confusion is death in Hollywood. Still, Meghan's trying hard. And her re-entry into Hollywood society events is proof. She was recently seen at the L'Oreal Women of Worth Gala, posing alone, in a monochrome look reminiscent of old Hollywood red carpets. A charity dinner in Beverly Hills, where she was seated with stylists and fashion editors rather than politicians, or philanthropists. A quiet art auction, hosted by a luxury skincare line. No press allowed, but plenty of influencer posts emerged within hours. The message? She's back. But she's not running. She's floating. Curated. Cool. Impossibly composed. And, dare we say it, distant. Because for all the new photos, public sightings, and whispered collaborations, Meghan still isn't speaking. No interviews. No follow-ups. No commentaries on the backlash. Just silence. And in Hollywood, silence without mystery becomes boredom. Here's where things take a darker turn. Sources say Netflix is watching all of this very closely. One insider shared, they're waiting to see if this lifestyle pivot actually builds traction. If it does, they might salvage the brand with a documentary-style follow-up. If not, don't expect more Meghan content in 2025. Translation? Netflix isn't just cooling off. They're quietly backing away. And Meghan? She's racing the clock. Because her biggest strength, celebrity mystique, is becoming her biggest liability. Let's not forget. The Sussexes were once the most talked-about couple on Earth. Post-Oprah, pre-coronation, mid-palace feud. But now, Meghan is fighting for relevance. Not power, not sympathy, not privacy, just attention. And that's the one thing Hollywood doesn't hand out freely anymore. You have to earn it, or buy it, or bleed for it. And Meghan? She's trying to bake her way to redemption. She's trying to lavender oil her way into likability. She's trying to goop her way into reinvention. But does the public even care? And more importantly, will this new audience ever see the real her, or just another perfectly polished illusion? Because in Chapter 7, we're peeling back the curtain behind the scenes, where Meghan's emotional spiral reportedly began the moment the holiday special flopped. Private meltdowns, team panic, radio silence, and whispers that this failure hurt more than anyone expected. Because when your rebrand collapses before it even launches, what's left? What happens when the curtain falls and no one claps? That's the question that reportedly sent Meghan Markle spiraling into one of the most emotionally raw moments of her post-royal life. Because when With Love, Meghan, holiday celebration debuted on Netflix, she expected calm. She expected warmth. She expected, at the very least, polite applause. What she got instead was an avalanche of scorn, mockery, and perhaps worst of all, indifference. And behind closed doors, the carefully composed Duchess reportedly did not take it well. Because make no mistake, this was supposed to be her moment. The redemption arc, the comeback, the soft reintroduction to the world. But within 48 hours of its release, that narrative had shattered. And Meghan was left picking up the pieces. Let's start with the timeline. The special aired at 12:01 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on a quiet Monday in early December. By morning, Meghan's team was already watching analytics. According to a source close to Archwell Productions, early engagement numbers were decent, but nowhere near the spike they hoped for. Netflix had run limited promotion, opting for an organic rollout backed by light social buzz. Meghan believed the content would speak for itself. She had reportedly told her team, "It's soft. It's beautiful. People are tired of drama. This is the tone people are craving." But by noon, something was off. The Netflix carousel didn't feature her special in top spots. Viewers weren't talking about the show, and the few posts that did mention it were mocking, sarcastic, detached, brutal. And then the headlines began. The first major review hit just after 3 p.m. Then another, and another, all of them echoing the same sentiment. Cold, joyless, disconnected. By dinner time, #StepForwardChristmas was trending, and the mood inside Archwell had shifted from celebratory to combative. A staffer reportedly described it as an immediate war room pivot. The phones lit up. Emails flew. Social listening tools flagged negative sentiment at over 80%. What was meant to be a cozy brand play had become a reputational firestorm. And Meghan? She wasn't prepared for it. Sources say she initially tried to stay calm. She read through the reviews. She watched the trending videos. And for the first few hours, she was composed. But then came Alison Pearson's takedown in The Telegraph. The one that labeled her joyless, fake, and a step-forward hostess. That's when it reportedly broke her. One insider, speaking under condition of anonymity, said she read the Pearson article out loud to her team. She was furious. Not just hurt, angry. She couldn't believe someone would call her strange or cold. That stung. Another described her reaction as a controlled breakdown. She didn't scream, but she shut down. She canceled calls. She told everyone not to contact her unless it was urgent. She just disappeared for a while. The irony? This was the exact opposite of what the special was supposed to represent. Inside Netflix, the reaction was no less tense. Executives were reportedly stunned by the negative audience feedback. One anonymous contact shared, "We thought it